CFOs are still dealing with fragmented systems. If they want to be at making decisions and really driving the business, they need faster access to data, faster intelligence, making the CFO the hero of the story.
David Hanna is the CEO of Finmo, a company that's giving unprecedented real-time visibility to CFOs so that they can move at the speed of the modern world. In this episode, forget market volatility. The real threat to the modern balance sheet is the CFO's blind spot. Fragmented data is holding CFOs hostage to outdated cash positions. So how can financial managers manage global businesses when outdated data is keeping them in the dark? David, let's start with the root issue then. When you talk about fragmented banking systems, what does that actually look like for a CFO operating behind the scenes?
I picture a CFO really pulling his or her hair out, right? I mean, the reality is that systems are isolated, they're fragmented, they don't talk to each other. And CFOs really are challenged with bringing in sort of data from different portals and banks that they use. And so that's a nightmare. The complexity goes through the roof when you extrapolate the number of organizations in a particular company, number of entities, PO systems not talking to each other, etc. And so that's what we're dealing with now. Very much a nightmare where, the systems aren't talking to each other and telling a picture.
You paint a very bleak picture for the CFO. I feel really bad for them now. CFOs today, though, are expected to act in real time, but obviously that visibility is stuck. Like you said earlier on, they have to look in so many different places. They're still stuck in the batch cycles as well. What is stopping visibility from catching up to the speed of modern finance? Because obviously it's moving fast.
For sure. I think visibility is really about connected infrastructure, right? And so if we think about the legacy banking infrastructure, it hasn't traditionally been as open as it's moving to today. And banks are digitizing their sort of platforms and building new APIs to allow for openness and connectivity. And so I think what that does for the CFOs allow them to really, look at it from more of a data and intelligence point of view. Rather than just a spreadsheet, trying to connect spreadsheets together, the CFO can actually tell the story about how their business is going, what drivers they need to be focused on at any one time. And we can look at things like AI and other tools that continue to sort of challenge that, right? And bring that enhancement to kind of the data in order to make more intelligent decisions downstream as well. CFOs are still dealing with fragmented systems, right? And the reality is that if they want to be at the top table, making decisions and really driving the business, they need faster access to data, faster intelligence in terms of, understanding what that data is telling them. And so that's what we're trying to solve at Finmo, really bringing the aggregation of cash visibility into a single dashboard. We call it the command center, and allowing CFOs to make those better choices and decisions based on that data.
Modern banks are still relying heavily on a coding language called COBOL, which was developed in the 1950s. COBOL still handles 95% of all ATM transactions and supports 80% of in-person credit card transactions. It's also the foundation of more than 40% of all online banking systems. But what if they're not making those better choices? What are the risks then if they are still working off all of those different balance sheets? What if they choose to stay left behind and can't catch up with that speed?
The risks are great. In terms of not having the ability to manage their cash in an optimal way, there's a revenue driver there, right? So if they're not understanding where their balances are, when they're hitting the bank accounts and being able to move excess working capital to yield enhancing products as an example, that's an issue for a business driver point of view. I think for me, it's also about the fact that there's a globalization push, right? No longer do merchants or our clients work in a single market. I call it, building a widget in a single market. They work across the region and globe because there's globalization. There's a lot of competition. The heat is on. And so what CFOs need to do is be able to keep up with that competition, keep up with the market forces, and make decisions as they can using better data and visibility across their business.
Do you think businesses are also ready for that shift? Are they equipped? Are they mentally prepared for that big shift?
I think so. It's really interesting. I think the way I describe it is that, we're bringing the sexy back to finance.
And kind of fascinating just to be able to shine the spotlight on them for a change instead.
Right. And really, the CFO is a very strategic role. That person needs to be, in the engine room of driving the business, right? And so I rely even in my business, on the CFO and helping me make strategic decisions. I think that the finance function has traditionally lagged in that kind of innovation. We've seen other functions, whether it be risk management or, HR or operations, have tools available that does, allow them to innovate. We're making the CFO the hero of the story. I think now it's the chance for the finance function to, as you say, step more from the back office into the front office and be a bit more strategic in their thinking and sort of output.
David Hanna, CEO of Finmo. Thank you. Thanks for tuning into this episode of I See Your Trade Season 6. I See Your Trade is brought to you by IC Markets, a leading high-performance trading provider. Trade up to IC Markets. See you next time.